This episode is sponsored by the IFS Institute. This fall, join IFS thought leader Dr. Steve Chi for a powerful journey into the sacred nervous system in the IFS Continuity Program. Designed for those who have completed the online circle or an IFS Level 1 training, this fall program blends somatic awareness, spiritual insight, and IFS wisdom to help you stay grounded in self-energy, no matter what life brings. With monthly teaching videos and live sessions September through December, this is your space to deepen your healing and your capacity to support others. Enrollment is open now at ifs-institute.com. Come as you are, stay as you grow with the IFS Continuity Program. Welcome to Season 6 of the One Inside an Internal Family Systems podcast. I'm Tammy Sollenberger, author of The One Inside 30 Days to Your Authentic Self. This podcast is for anyone curious about their inner world and who have a desire to connect to that authentic self. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I am super excited today to have my friend, Dr. Steve Chi, on the podcast. So Dr. Steven Chi is an integrative East-West physician and certified IFS therapist whose work supports sensitives. I love this bio, by the way. Sensitives, mystics, and field-aware souls who've been told they're too much, too sensitive, or too anything. I definitely identify with that, Steve, for sure. He's offering an upcoming IFS continuity program titled The Sacred Nervous System, a relational pathway for self and IFS, which is a foundational entry into his soul emergent approach, which we definitely want to talk about that, where neuroscience, mysticism, and relational medicine meet in a living field of transformation. So I want to start with this quote, which I've actually heard this quote so many times, but there's something about it that I think that you really like and you identify with. So I want to talk about it in the context of what lights you up and what you're offering. So it's a Howard Thurman quote that reads, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do that. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive." So tell me about that.
Yeah, I love this quote so much. And, Howard Thurman was a civil rights activist, was a Christian mystic, and was an inspiration to Martin Luther King Jr. And his words, I feel like, resonate just as true now as back then, right? And the journey of coming alive, of sharing what we love in the world, is very personal, for me and all of us, right, who are on that kind of wanting to do that. And there is no question, without a doubt, this has been the hardest thing for me to do. And I want to share a bit about my own personal story, and maybe you and your listeners may resonate with it in their own way. As a kid, I was very sensitive. And what I loved to do, I didn't tell anyone about. I always did it alone. And so, yeah. And so, one of the things that I remember so clearly that I would love to do was to go into my backyard and I would imagine I was finding long lost dinosaur eggs and I would love them. And then they would hatch and then I would nurture them. And as a little kid, I was just doing this over and over and over again. Yeah. And I can see the way this is landing inside of you. It's so precious. And to me, this was alone. And one of the other things that I really remember as a child was I just had this deep sense, that this beautiful planet, this Earth, our home, was temporary, and that we come from the stars. That's really where we belong. And and I can feel that inside of me, like this deep sense of aliveness as I start to name this again. And as a kid, as I was naming, it's like this wasn't nurtured. And I mean, if I'm not talking about it, it's not able to be nurtured, of course. And so, we're talking about the journey of emergence, right? Howard Thurman's quote. You can understand why it's hard to share what I love or what makes me come alive if it was always alone. Through my journeys and my own healing process, I've come across many different relational healing models. And there was one experience in particular that really was like a major portal into healing this dynamic. And I was meditating and I was alone. And I was in this place, it was so beautiful, just very spiritually connected and, lots of self energy and certainly not aware of any parts. And I was there and I was just in part because of the work that I had been exploring. I was curious and I asked myself this question: am I safe to connect from this place? Yeah. And the answer to that question was stunning because in that moment, I didn't know. Yes, I, like many children, when you're growing up in a dynamic where safety is not certain, I buried it. I buried the answer to that question. You could say I dissociated or I spiritually bypassed or whatever word. It was the answer to the question was so not safe that it's better to just not know, right?
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
what the nervous system does. This is what my nervous system had to do to survive. And this opened, my goodness, such a doorway relationally for healing because what came through that was so many relationships with people where I got to experience what it feels like a felt sense of safety. And not just a sense of safety, a sense of safety to be me, to, yeah, to love what I love, to feel safe, to share what makes me come alive. And, it was so moving in so many ways. And I can see how this is touching something in you. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you receiving my story in this way because it is really moving. And you talk about now, like what makes me come alive. And, it's like something I didn't receive as a child that then was given to me that I was fortunate to receive can now be something that I give to others. This is the mystery and the miracle of love itself, right? And to me, this program and what I'm sharing and what I like to do and what comes through my work and, is so much related to people like me who were to something, to whatever wasn't safe to emerge and to start moving towards how can we make this safe for these beautiful, sensitive beings, right? They have such beautiful ways of being in our world to make it safe for them to come alive too, because that's what our world needs, all of us. And so that's this program. The continuity program is a piece of that. It's a part of that relationship of me coming alive and bringing that little boy in me who loving those dinosaur eggs and creating a space where people can remember what makes them come alive too.
So, yeah, I'm having so many reactions as you're talking. And I guess maybe I'm curious about if you would be comfortable sharing, how did you go from I don't know, like I don't know that I'm safe
Yeah.
to, that something had been like it sounds like your connection to your own intuitive, well, you tell me how you would say this, but like your connection to your own intuition or a connection to your own self with a capital S, was lost. And so, and we're going to talk about love too, and love and how that kind of played and being loved for who you are and all of who you are without having to apologize for it or be, oh, I'm sorry, I'm too sensitive, or I'm sorry, I'm too much, or whatever. I know I'm asking like 100 questions here, but yeah, I guess I'm curious how you
It's
went
okay.
from that moment to this moment.
Yeah, well, it's such a beautiful question. I totally get it.
Terrible question.
It's a great question. I love it. There's like 10 of them in there too, and we'll see how many I remember. Um, so you might need to remind me. But there's the big one that I'm sensing is well, so I mean, I was exploring relational intelligence, this model developed by Francois Ledoux, integrating IFS attachment theory and polyvagal theory. And so I was already within that container, and there was already stuff priming me, seeing it outside of me, like this kind of awareness. Like I didn't even know, like seeing that outside of me, somebody speaking about it, and I could tell it was real. Then I saw it, I started to become curious inside of me. And that's when I started, and it literally just came to me. I didn't. plan to have the question, but I was in the field of exploration and I was already kind of moving in that direction. So it was, and to me, this is a part of the key of it. All right. It's like there needs to be relational safety to start to build this kind of awareness because otherwise the nervous system will do what it'll do to survive, which is bury it. It was out of survival that it needs to be like that. So when there's enough relational safety, things can start to thaw. There needs to be enough connection. There needs to be enough safety for people to start to look at it. And that's to me is a part of the program is starting to like, let's start building a relationship of safety around what your nervous system could be doing.
So I'm familiar with Francois's program. He's been on the podcast, and I have a client that I absolutely love who's gone through a couple levels of his program. And so my understanding is you're not doing. I'm going to totally oversimplify this, but you're not going to do part. Like, say if I was a client and you were my therapist, before I go inside and do parts work, you're going to ask me how safe I feel with you. Like, we're going to kind of, and my understanding of that is kind of checking my nervous system. So, we're going to kind of do a little check of my nervous system based on our relationship before then I go and I mean, I know this isn't exactly it, but then before I go inside and then I myself then works with my parts. Is that right? Or sort of tell me more about
Yeah.
that, because people probably aren't familiar with that his program and his way of kind of bringing polyvagal and IFS together in this way.
So first, in all fairness to him and his beautiful work, I am I mean, I did his training. I am not certified in his model, and I am not teaching his model on his behalf. Like, we just need to make that explicit. So just in integrity. And to me, how I would answer your question, because it is essentially true. And the word I would probably take a step back because let's make this about IFS from an IFS lens. Okay. So the protective system is what we're working with. And what polyvagal attachment theory relational intelligence does is start giving like what's the language of the nervous system, which is the protective system. The protective system emerges through the nervous system. And so there's a language that's not explicit in the IFS model that becomes more explicit through these other models. And one of those really key things, and I talk more explicitly about it in the continuity program I'm doing, is the nervous system is relational. This is the huge awareness from polyvagal theory. It's not occurring just fight, flight, or freeze or whatever. It is always in relationship. And so then when we look at it relationally, this is where this can start to bloom because we may or may not be explicitly aware of parts, but the relational dynamic is absolutely alive. And so when we start looking at IFS and the very first step of the 6Fs, I need to find a part. Well, we need to know the field in which the parts could be arising, is how I would start to say it, because that also could be impacting what's emerging.
Love that. Okay, so the field in which they're arising could be the field of our relationship as you're my therapist and I'm the client, or the field with my son, or the like sort of the external field. Is that kind of that in those relationships we have
Yeah.
in those fields? Okay.
Well, and
Okay, that
then the
makes
other
sense.
thing that I would add is, the nervous system is automatic. The nervous system is always playing music and it's in relationship to what's happening. Like you imagine a show or a movie and you can tell like the music starts playing and you can already feel this is going to be a great tender moment potentially or oh my goodness, we need to run or oh wow, where am I? I am like lost somewhere. I'm in the abyss of whatever. And so the music is happening and what's important from my perspective is starting to understand these rhythms, the rhythm of the music starting to emerge because then we can start to see because that influences parts and also changes whether parts are how aware we are of parts even. Like my own story, the spiritual bypass story, I was not aware of any parts. In fact, it was the opposite. I was in a place that felt so familiar, so connected, and I was not aware of any parts. And it wasn't until I was curious to look at my sense of safety that I actually realized it was buried from my own awareness. That's what the nervous system does. So if I was only approaching this from a parts perspective, which is why I've done a lot of parts work over the last 5, 6 years, never accessed it. And which makes sense because it's not a part, it's a relational state of my nervous system. And especially when it's attachment wounding, it's like growing up in a room and the color of the walls are always orange. And like, yeah, this is just what is. The walls are all orange and this is what life is. Without realizing that's a disconnected place. Like you're in a room. And it was like, well, what do you mean? And so this is why this is the challenge with developmental trauma. And to me, this is where it's so important to start building relational awareness in a safe way, to start coming towards this in a way that's connected. This is not about trying to hunt for this. It's no, this is the exact opposite. This is the heart inside of me. It feels very clear. I am moving towards something that was like buried essentially, and it's my heart that's doing. It's love. It's a caring, and this is the way that I kind of like to embody polyvagal because it needs to land that way. Otherwise, the nervous system is going to push, and it still might even push this away because it's not safe. But that still needs to be met.
Yeah. How do we begin to pay attention to that?
Yeah. Well, in the program, we go more in depth in it, but really, it's I've learning the language of the nervous system, and this is where I use a lot of languaging that's I feel it's funny. I was just talking to someone the other day. It's like they tried to read Borges's books and they just dissociated. They just couldn't get through it, right? It's like the languaging is not accessible, and so it's so important to me to make it accessible. So learning the rhythms, of the nervous system, because then when we can start to sense it, and it's like, there's three main rhythms. So mobilize, which is technically called fight flight. Like the music is like knowing that, like, oh, just starting to pay attention to that. Or the withdraw state, which is kind of the state of like collapsing, or the technical term is dorsal, where the system is collapsing. The system has to close. And then a state of connection. To me, and again, we'll go more in depth in the program around this, but ultimately, one of the things that I feel is very important to start to name explicitly is the condition of the heart. Our hearts are revealing it. So if our heart, when we're not safe, it closes. When it mobilizes, it's closing. When it's withdrawing, it's buried. I can't, like, in that state that I was mentioning, that spiritual bypass place. Yeah, there was a lot of self energy, but my heart, I would say, in retrospect, was completely buried. I didn't want to connect. What's the condition of my heart? Is my heart open? Does it feel safe to connect? Is the key. And then and if it's not, finding a safe person to start exploring, like, what is actually going on with my heart here? Because that's actually the nervous system is protecting our most sensitive, our most vulnerable part of us, where the heart, that's what we feel, is feels things through our heart.
So as you're saying that, I'm like, okay, so if my heart, I've definitely been here, not that long ago. If my heart is feeling like this is unsafe, 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 I don't know that it would feel safe for me to then turn towards another person. Like I feel like that
Yeah.
would still be like, yeah, I mean, I could talk a bit, or I could kind of intellectually, like knowing IFS as well as I do, I could talk about IFS, or I could even talk about my parts, but there would still be so much protection
Yes.
around, like, I can't go back into collapse of my nervous system. Like, I can't go back there. I can't go back to where I can't function. Like, I can't go back there. So I've been living in this I've been talking a lot about this numb state. And so it's kind of like I've been living in this numb place with just enough of me available so that I can function. But yeah, I guess I'm curious about that. My system is like, we have to be protected, we have to be disconnected, we have to be numbed out. In this moment, I'm like, I'm not sure how much love my system would even let in, even
Yes.
if it was standing right here in front of me.
Well, that's the dilemma that many of us have grown up with. Love itself wasn't safe,
Yeah.
or in the name of love, right? So to me, what you're naming first and foremost, so there needs So you're naming it, obviously, with me right now. So there's enough safety. I'm not saying you feel super safe with it, but if you didn't feel safe enough at all, you wouldn't have even brought it up.
Okay, so that shifts something in me. You saying it that way shifts something already that I'm like, oh, yeah, I do feel safe with you. I adore you. We've been through this group together that I think was very intimate and just very lovely. And so you saying that, I'm like, oh, yeah, there must be something I'm feeling that does feel like a little bit of an opening just with our relationship and connection.
Yes. So this is the relational, you're starting to feel us. And that's connection. There's something about me naming that, and then you resonated with it. And so one of the things I learned from Francois, which I believe he took from Deidre Fay, there's this question of how is it for you to know that I'm seeing you? So how is it for you to know, Tammy, that I really get it? Everything you just said, right? The challenge, the connection, all of it. I can see there's something, it looks like it's touch. Yes. Yeah.
It's really powerful. I feel like I just went from like super intellectual thinking to like, yeah, I can feel like warmth in my heart and yeah, try not to cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Well,
feels good.
and I
But it
get
feels
that,
good, like in a really good way.
Tammy. And it's so beautiful. I mean, it touches me hearing you share that. I'm stunned, honestly, that you're willing to do this with me here. And it just it speaks to who you are. You'd be willing to reveal yourself so vulnerably with me and with your audience. Really, it's really beautiful. And so what happens inside of you, Tammy, when you hear me acknowledge you in this way? How does that land?
Two parts. I have one part that says, oh crap, we keep forgetting we're on a podcast with thousands of people listening. Shoot. I have that part. Um, I have another part that says, "Oh, did I do something wrong? Like
Hmm.
if you're stunned, then I must have done something wrong. I'm being too much or too sensitive or I'm being too something." Yeah, those are the two parts that I hear the most.
And that makes
But
so
I feel more connected to you. Like as you share that, I feel like sort of this yeah, I feel more connected to you, like a little string of connection. At the same time, I can hear these two parts kind of over to my
and so is it okay to stay with this and be with this? And that's what it comes up inside of me. That's the sense of letting us stay in this field of connection and this awareness of these parts and just hang out here for a moment. And
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. A part that's like, as long as it's benefiting everybody, as long as it benefits everybody.
when it does, because it's an invitation, right?
Yeah, these two parts I just kind of heard. Um, it's safe. Okay, it's safer for it to be my fault. Like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. It's me. If there's ever a problem, then it's probably my fault. So, and that's feels really familiar and almost like a safe, like, okay, yep, it's my fault, like, okay, yep, I'm sorry, it's
Yes.
my fault, okay, can we all be okay now, I'm taking all the responsibility, it's my fault. I'm kind of hearing that. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
And so what happens again, like, is it okay that we're doing this? I just want to name because we're moving
Yeah,
in this direction and I trust you, but I just want to make that explicit. Is that okay?
it is, I know, and I trust you too, and a part of me is like, this isn't, we've met with him years ago, but yeah, I think it's fine, it feels good, feels good.
Yeah. And just to make it explicit at any point, we stop. It feels important for me to name that.
Okay, that sounds.
So something came up. So just recap for a second. So I acknowledged you. You shared something vulnerable. I told you I was really shocked and stunned and in a good way. I was very moved by what your emerged. Such a tenderness you decide, you showed me. And then when we acknowledged it, there's something about it. It's like, ooh, it's me, it's bad. I shouldn't, right? There's something like that. Yeah. And so how is it like what happens when we make space? Like, and you mentioned there's a connection with me and you. Can you let our relationship, the sense of safety and connection, just be with this part that's here that's wondering if it's done something wrong? And what happens? How does that land inside of you when we do that?
I hear, and this is really familiar. I hear like, "Well, I'm good at connection. I'm good at relationships, and that's so so I can get away with a lot because I can trick you and yeah, I've tricked you to like me with my powers of connection, and now yeah, I've fooled you."
Oh, this is okay. This is beautiful. I really get it. So, so what's actually happening with your heart as
Mm.
you're sharing this with me? How's if it's okay, I'm curious.
It feels light. I feel like my heart feels light. I feel very I feel connected to you. I feel very like I love these parts. I find them funny. I've heard this so many times. They have told me this kind of thing so many times. So it feels, yeah, my heart feels it feels very light. It feels nice. It feels nice because it was, to be honest, it was very heavy before we got on this podcast. So I actually was like, you need to get it together before you do this podcast. So it feels very light right now, which feels nice.
Beautiful. And so, can you let this part, how does it respond to feeling the lightness of your heart?
It's very sassy, and it's like, well, you like it kind of just like rolls its eyes and like snaps its like, okay, but you know what I'm saying, and it kind of walks away like in a huff, but in like a playful, and I'm like, I love you, and it's like, yeah, yeah, I love you too. Like it's kind of like this funny,
I love it.
like, yeah, yeah, and I think there's something that like there's a lot happening with my heart right now. And so I really get it. So I feel like I really get it. Like there's a lot happening and so I really get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can see that. I can see that. Yeah. Beautiful, Tammy.
Thank you, Steve. It feels good just to kind of look at you and see you and you're so familiar to me too. So it feels nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And really beautiful. I can see. I could see it in your eyes.
What was that like for you? Now I got to put my podcast hat back
Of
on.
course,
What was that like for you?
people trusting me in such a intimate way, it moves something in my heart really, really deeply. So it's profound, really. I mean, it just makes me come alive, really, to just make make it safe for people to be with themselves and share themselves.
Yeah. Yet I'm guessing the more you do that, the more I do that, the more we do that, the more, because you talk about love and you talk about fidelity to love, and I'm curious what that means.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I'm guessing, you're right, this sort of more, there's more this loving connection with us. Yeah, so tell me what fidelity to love means.
yeah. There's I actually want to share a piece of poetry by Kabir and give a little bit of background to Kabir. So Kabir was a 14th century mystic. He was born Muslim, became a Hindu, and later a Sufi. So his whole life was about transcending different spiritual models and systems and into love. And so this is a short poem. It's inside this clay jug. Inside this clay jug are canyons and pine mountains, and the creators of canyons and pine mountains, and the seven oceans, and hundreds of millions of stars, and the acid that tests gold, and the music that comes from stringless instruments. If you want to know the truth, I will tell you the truth. Friend, the God that I love lives inside of me. And yes, so there's so many beautiful clay jugs. And to me, you know, it's a fidelity to love versus fidelity to a model, to a system, to a theory, to science, because so many attachment theory, polyvagal, et cetera, really beautiful, but they're not naming love. They're all about love, ultimately. And it seems so important to make it explicit. And I'm going to tell you a personal story that speaks to this. There was a therapist I really wanted to work with. and she was trained in a specific modality, and it kept falling apart. I just kept trying to make it happen, and it just didn't happen over and over and over again. And I was getting really activated. It was really painful, honestly. And I was like, what is this? Like, why is this so important that I work with this person? And when I started to look with it and I realized I was really hoping, like really hoping that my belonging would come through this person and that model. Like these would be my people and everything would be okay then finally. And it would be my home, so to speak. And it was really through other therapeutic relationships that I really started to get at this at a different way because one person in particular really worked with me and it was explicitly not a model. It was not a theory. It was not a system. It was love. And this was so powerful for me to receive that I could be loved just for me, that I didn't need, that my love wasn't based on whether I performed a model, whether I believed in something, whether I was good or whatever. It was about me being loved. And when love was named explicitly as the source, something bloomed inside of me because this is what's underneath everything. It's the mystery of love that helps to heal what seems to be broken. It is love that only love can genuinely do. It's not a model. The models are pointing towards it. And I'm not anti model. No, but the models need to be held with love. And, even in me, naturally, what even starts to come forward from this question of love is the source is this question of which I talk about in the continuity program is who gets to name the sacred? Who gets to name the clay jugs? Because historically, it's certain bodies, certain voices are the only ones that have the power to name the sacred. And to me, it is so important to reclaim this. Every person, every body, every nervous system is sacred and is a sacred expression of love. And it's so important that the space gets renamed or reclaimed so that what is there is a fidelity to love. It's not performing a model, not performing and understanding a theory. It's not that's useful to understand. Don't get me wrong, but the essence is you can be you and be loved. Like it's just is so clear to make it explicit because otherwise there can be unspoken dynamics in many healing communities where it's about how well you're performing a model and who gets to be named in that way, who gets to be seen in that way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I think I could say, right, like even if we do IFS, I can do IFS out of a like sort of loving the person I'm working with and doing the F's versus like just doing the F's of the IFS model. Like, that can feel very just sort of stale without connection. And that's going to be very different, right? Just sort of doing the IFS protocol without love, very stale, disconnected, versus doing it with love, with connection. And then also kind of following that I might even drop the protocol because I'm just kind of following the love, following the connection.
Right? And that's that's the miracle and the mystery of love, right? That's and to me it's like what's unquote unquote unscripted to me is like you may not feel comfortable naming that always. And to me, like, oh no, this is you and love moving through. This to me is what makes it possible. This is what makes us called to the path of a healer is that that's love. That's it's so it's not the model per se. The model's helping us.
Yeah, I feel like the model kind of gives us some structure or something, or yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm wondering if how people are receiving this as they're listening, like the idea of being this loving, like kind of outward, and then also receiving it, both can feel very dangerous. I don't like that's the word that comes.
Yes,
Tell me your react. You
of
just made a
course.
great face. Tell me your reaction.
Well, okay, so this is a part of why I named this in the beginning or a moment ago about who gets to name the sacred. I mean, what's been weaponized and misused? And in the name of love, God, the divine, the sacred, has been used to harm people. Wars, families, cultures, there's no question. It's understandable, 1000%. The terrain of love has been has been dangerous, and for good reason, because it's been misused by people. By there's a huge I'm not going to lie that there's not. And but the so to me, it's first understanding that, our history with love and the sacred, because that's a part of the relationship of healing. It's part of, honestly, what may call to many healers ultimately is these kinds of things. It's our own wounds. But like Rumi said, our wound is what lets the light in. And so to me, that's the invitation, because it's not about this needs to be attuned too. I'm not saying I'm telling everybody that I'm naming love explicitly. I'm not. There are times that I do, actually, and there's times it's moved me, and it's been very touching to my patients to name it, that's how I feel. But I'm doing it in a way that's attuned, just like we do with parts work, and the system is giving us feedback on what it's landing. I'm just making it the opportunity more explicit on what actually is um, emerging.
It also sounds like I thought it'd be good for us to this would be a good place to talk about like co-regulation because it sounds like that's what's happening when you're naming it. There's some co-regulation happening. So let's talk a little bit about that. And I love
Yeah,
this term co-regulation into co-revelation. So tell me what that means.
I know. So, to me, what we're talking about in IFS language is blended parts, right? So, what do you do? And this is one of the biggest challenges with IFS. So, what do you do when a part is blended and it doesn't want to unblend? And, you do the U turn, you do the implicit or explicit direct access, and either it doesn't work, or what if it's even making things worse? They're becoming more activated, right? And to me, this is where co-regulation comes through. I've experienced this, and I was in a place, and boy, I was activated, and I was definitely not experiencing a part. And if someone were to say, "Is that a part of you?" it would have they would have gotten a pretty strong reaction. Um, I was in this place, and there was this person who was with me, and I could tell the way the person was coming towards me was different. And I mean this is not an exaggeration. And this, again, done lots of parts work. No one had ever met me in this way. And this was the first time in my life that this state, this person came towards me, and I could feel them caring about me. It was their eyes. I saw it in their eyes first, and we know this from polyvagal theory. I could see a softness in their eyes. I could hear it in the quality of their voice. I could hear it. There was no defensiveness, and they moved towards me, and they got me, and something happened after that, and I realized that frustration. It's not that I didn't wanna connect, which sometimes it can be threatening to people on the other side. It's like, no, it was the opposite. It's like 1000%. I wanted to connect. I just didn't wanna connect that way. And so when the person met me and connected with me, then I could settle, but it was the connection that settled me. And the other interesting thing was this. I So if I would have been asked to go inward with it as a part before connecting, it would have felt like a reenactment of every other time as a child. I was seen as too much, too whatever. And as opposed to that, I got to be experiencing frustration. Actually, it wasn't just anger, it was actually just fear and anger, both highly activated. And in relationship. Like, it was safe to be that and connected. It never in that place had ever happened that I could be met by somebody in that way. And it starts to get at, to me, what's deeper, the deeper relational dynamics, the deeper interpersonal dynamics. And so to me, this is co-regulation, technically, polyvagal theory. But to me, polyvagal theory, again, it's the languaging is so clinical. It's like, and it also doesn't speak to, right? It's like, oh, let's co-regulate. It's like, like what? It's like, let's connect. We're friends, or I love you. It's like, come sit next to me, or oh, sweetie, there you are. It's not like co-regulate with me. It's like, oh there you are. What's going? Oh, come here. Let me see what's going. It's like right. It's and so in co-revelation, why do I name it this way? Because so this dramatically changed how I did work with people with blended parts. This awareness inside of me, because they're not trying to get in the way in a sense. It's a relational dynamic. It's an interpersonal phenomenon. And so what I realized has been the same thing that I've been mentioning, something I never received. I received from this person, and now I'm giving it to someone else. This is so beautiful. It's love. It's co-revelation. This person gets loved in a way they may never have been loved. I'm loving myself in a way I never got loved. It's just like everybody just wants to, just cuddle up and like, like puppy pile and like a little love nest, right? It's like, and that's right. And so this is why I'm calling it co-revelation, because it's love emerging. It's not just co-regulation. It's not just it is physiologic. Don't get me wrong. It is embodied. It is 1000% embodied. It is physiologic, but it's love embodied.
Okay, so one of the things that's coming up for me in had this conversation with one of my friends that like when because say you're in this angry, scared place and your person that you loved is loving, but they try to unblend you. Like they try, like how that
Yes.
actually would not feel really good because it's like, I'm pissed, I'm angry, and my whole life I'm not allowed to be pissed and angry, or I'm not allowed to be pissed and sad. Or if I'm pissed and sad, it's because I'm too sensitive and I took it wrong. Right. So for me to be able to be pissed and sad, and for you to be like, you're good, tell me more, like do the direct access, which I'm putting in quotes, but like I can be blended with this part and I can be pissed and sad, and you say to me, this is fine, tell me more, I love you, we can stay with this, it's allowed, versus like can you unblend from that part, and can that part, which I still think is good, but like unblending from it and having that part tell me, which is again still is lovely, but not, it just feel in this moment I'm like that just feels a bit different.
Yeah. Well, you look at like what is good parenting? A good parent holds the world of the child in their heart and then shares it with them. So it helps the child. This is attachment theory. Make sense of why I'm feeling this way. Why, when so and so said something mean to me at school, it's like why I hurt. And it's like a parent can hold that with them and then offer it back with love so that then the child can take it in. This is the basis of, like, we know from research, the therapeutic relationship. It's not the model. The therapeutic relationship is what heals. Like research has shown, like when you look at different people who do different styles, like the majority of the healing process is the relationship that they have with the therapist. It's not the model. It's the relational dynamic. And in my work with people, I mean, not only being with them, I mean, and I'll work with them at their pace, but ultimately inside of me, oh my goodness, no, that's their gold. There's something so precious there that it's like everything in my heart wants to let it bloom in whatever space or time that it needs, just in its own pace. But I will be with you to let it come through you, because there's something sacred about your anger, about your fear, because it's sensing something very deep relationally, and it needs to be safe, needs to be nurtured in a way that helps the person to emerge
And to bring us back to the beginning, to then be alive, right? For
and
the
then to be
person to,
alive.
yeah, I love it. I love it. Steve, this is great. I'm excited that you're going to be doing this program. Excited that you're just around the IFS community more and more. And I love it. And I adore you. And I appreciate you being on the podcast. I jumped in and I didn't ask you where you are I didn't ask you my first question, which is where you are in the world and what you see out your nearest window. I forgot we were doing a podcast.
So I'm in Los Angeles, and when I look out my window, we have this enclosed patio, and so it's semi outdoors, and I've got all these plants, and there's a fountain, and my wife and I, especially in the summer, like it's great for al fresco dining where we can like eat and not have bugs come attack our food.
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, you don't want that. And then, so for people that want to know more, you're at SteveQchi.com. And anything else you want to say about the sacred nervous system before we go?
Yeah, it's drsteveqchi.com.
How many times can I say your website wrong? Let's just see.
It's okay. It's okay. It'll be in the description. They'll find it. They know where it is. They'll just cut and paste. Honestly, what comes to me is like a blessing, just a blessing inside of me for all of us and for anybody, myself included, and any of those who may have felt too much or too sensitive or too whatever, just this blessing from my heart, like that it's safe, that they may find a place where they could be safe, and relationships that make them feel safe and loved so that they can emerge and that they can come alive, that they can come alive too.
And last question, which is if you had to do something different in the world, what would you do?
And I love these questions, by the way. At first, I wanted to say like a interstellar time space traveler, but I actually have a real answer too. I mean, it's like,
I think that is a great answer.
it is a
That's
great answer. I want to be a writer, and what's emerged actually, and I'm writing a book now, and it's really a book that I wish I would have been given. Really, this book for anyone who this mystical child, right? Anybody, and it's a polyphonic symphony about love, crosses many different things, and really, it's about coming home to themselves. And I'm ready. And actually, there's other books I didn't even realize that's what's been happening as all of this has been coming through me. There's actually like several books that I actually am wanting to write. So it's been just in the last several months. I didn't even realize this.
I love it. Well, you'll have to come back on when you get it a little bit more formulated, or when it comes out, you want to come back on. Obviously, I would love to have you on anytime. And I also think you should write a book about the time travel, multiverse thing. I think that's also a great idea.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate yeah. So you're encouraging me too. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for your work in the world. And I appreciate you being on the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you left a rating, a review, a like, comment, share with your family, your friends. That would mean so much to me. My book is available at your favorite independent bookstore or on Amazon. You can visit my website, tammysalenberger.com, or you can download a free Get to Know a Should part of you. You can follow me at IFS Tammy on Instagram and at The One Inside on Facebook and on YouTube. Jeff Schrum co-produces The One Inside, and I am forever grateful for Jeff. Also thankful for Jack Rudin for creating the music, and just thank you for listening. 6 seasons, over 1 million downloads. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you in this community. I'll see you next time.